Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 92 of the Dan Gheesling podcast. Super excited to be here today. Thank you so much for dialing in, whether you're from Anchorage, Alaska, Skokie, Illinois, Moxie, Kansas, or maybe Tampa, Florida. How do you like that? It's the first time we called Florida out in a while. But anyways, thank you guys so much for dialing in. Today's fresh episode is going to be focusing on something that we never did before and kind of breaking it down. And if you're part of the community and you watch the Twitch show, you probably know exactly what I'm going to talk about before I even say what it is. But over the past, I'd say 4 weeks, there's been I'd say the largest scale production I've ever been involved in or in charge of. Not involved in, but in charge of anything that I've organized to this extent. And it really came from a place of two things. One, wanting to do something different, and two, and I'd say probably strike the order, to do something strictly for the community. There's no other reasons, nothing, like that's it. It just do something for the community. And so essentially what I did is a lot of people involved, but we created ended up being, I think, a 3.5-4 minute animation. The video was like 7 minutes total, but essentially coming up with you call it a true lore video about a character we play, or we've been playing as over the past 2 years in the Soul series. So kind of to take to the story of Cerso to square one, essentially it started with an idea, right? I'm like, hey, look, we've been joking throughout. We've played Dark Souls 1 through 3. Demon Souls and Bloodborne, and we've been joking about the whole time about how all the lore in the game is fake, and essentially the character we're playing as is the real story. So I'm like, well, what if we put something to that? I'm like, what if we actually made that tangible? And so it started with that idea. It's like, all right, so let's do like an animated video of it, and how do we get started? So really the first thing that I did, I was kind of strike. The first thing I did, I'm like, all right, well, like we need to find an animator because it's not going to, it needs to be animated. And so that was kind of the first step. And the first animator I talked to, it fell apart. Like we couldn't get on the same page, and it wasn't a good fit. And it didn't end on bad terms, I think, but it just wasn't a good fit for that person, and it was definitely not a good fit on my end. And so from there, it went from like, okay, I thought I had this animator, and I'm like, okay, well, I need to write a script. I've never written a script before in my life. So I just kind of sat down, I opened up a Google document, and I'm like, okay, hey, look, where do I think I want this story to go? And then how do we get it there? And I don't know, I don't really consider myself, maybe more so as I've gotten a little bit older, but a little bit creative, but I never really visualized myself like that. But when you have to sit down and come up with a story from scratch and write a script, you figure things out pretty quickly. And and to me, it's like anything else, you just do it. Like I didn't pull up how to write a script. I didn't YouTube. I'm just like, let me just write this down. And so I started with like a loose outline. I'm like, I actually started with how I knew I wanted it to end. And to get like super in depth with it is that I didn't know if this thing was going to flop, if people were going to like it, if people are going to be confused by it, if they're like, what this is a waste of time and money and resources. I don't know. I didn't know what people thought, but I knew this. I knew that, all right, I'm going to take a shot at it, see if it goes well, but I'm not going to write it in the fact that I'm just writing it as a one-shot Marty. The way I've kind of conceptualized it is like I planned on it going well, whether it did or not. I don't want to say planned, but I wrote the story as if it was just kind of the first chapter. And so I have like a loose arc of where things are going to go. But anyways, let me get back to reality. So I wrote the script, took a couple hours, and then after that, like you can't just write a script, right? You have to know what the characters are going to look like if you're going to have any sort of a direction for the animators and the artists. And so the way I did it, and I don't want to spoil too much, but I based everything off of stuff we've either have seen before and noticed, or haven't seen or kind of seen, but basically like started with, hey, this is what this character needs to look like. here's some assets on what you can make it look like. So I did that. So after you write the script, then you say, hey, this character looks like this is how they look like, this is what they're wearing, this is kind of their size, and so you kind of do it from that. So after that, after I have the script, after I have what the characters look like, I'm like, okay, now I got to find a new animator. What the heck do I do? Because like I said, it fell apart, wasn't a good fit. But you know, I'm still like, okay, hey, look, I got probably 2 weeks to put this thing together at this point. And this quick side note, kind of a joke started happening during Demon Souls is that, you know, people thought I was stalling, meaning that I was taking a lot of time to do certain things in the game. And you know, it was kind of a joke, but people were like, all right, Dan, like, pick it up. But in my head, I'm like, I know I need to. And I've never done that before in any kind of game. I just kind of play it as we see fit and don't worry about that. But this, I actually kind of had to line up and make sure, hey, everything needs to be done by this second Friday, you know, because that, you know, I need to be able to have the game done and wrapped on that day so we can play this video. So anyways, how I found the second animator, I'm like, okay, look, I I don't want to jump too far ahead in the story, but I started looking for voice actors, and it's really the first time I've deleted a tweet, but I sent a tweet out. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for some voice actors. It's a hired gig, blah, blah, blah. And I just got hammered. Like, I got like hundreds of reels and this and that. And like, after I even picked someone that kept coming in, which I appreciate, but I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go this route for the animator. So what I did is I kind of reverse engineered it in a way where there's this guy that the community told me to watch one of his videos, and you know, we watched it at the end of one of the Dark Souls games. I think maybe after Bloodborne, but his name is Vadi Vids, and he does like lore videos on Dark Souls. So I'm like, all right, let me look at who he is following on Twitter, because I bet I knew I think I already followed him, but I knew he was running some kind of art competition. I just knew that he had some kind of art competition for people to do art about Dark Souls. I'm like, let me see who he's following. So I went through and I checked the list of people he was following, and I just looked out for people who had the term animator or animation in their bio. So I went through that. I right clicked and did open a new tab on probably like 10 to 12 people that he followed, because I knew that like those people had to be familiar with Dark Souls. I couldn't imagine Vadi Vidya following someone that wasn't or didn't have some kind of knowledge of Dark Souls. So that was kind of the first one. And then from there, reached out. I looked at, 10 of those people, and I'm like, oh man, I really like 6 of these portfolios. So I DM those 6 people with really one person I found. I'm like, I really want them to get back to me solely for the fact that they're from Michigan. I'm like, this animator's from Michigan. She's from Detroit. I'm like, this has got to be it. And, her work was really good. So, of course, that was kind of the prerequisite. Everyone's work was really good, but it's, if I could hire someone from Michigan, it's a little bit different. So oddly enough, she was the first person and the fastest to respond, which was important because we're on a deadline. Side note, everyone else responded, but like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days later. At that point, we're halfway done. And I told her, I'm like, hey, look, we have 7 days to knock this out. Do you think you can do this? And on the front end, I'm like, hey, look, I know, like, I've seen your work. It's really, really well done. But if you have to cut some corners and we have to, if we got to, take a few shortcuts because we're on such a tight timeline, I completely understand and don't worry about it. So we went through and kind of negotiated everything where she felt good about everything and I felt good about everything. And I felt really good because she was the first to respond, but also it was very, very receptive. And to me, that's everything, right? Because essentially what I told her I wanted to do is like, hey, look, here's the script. Here's how I want the characters to look, but I just want to get out of your way. I don't want to be a roadblock in your way. If you have questions, like, I want to answer them as fast as possible, but I'm not going to nitpick your work because that's not how I operate. To me, as I like to work with or hire people that I think are talented and then just get the heck out of the way. And so it was really it was a really good experience working with her. Very little back and forth in terms of, I just trusted her. And there's some very, very slight, like I think 1 or 2 alterations, but it was just wasn't anything major. So that process of the animation was really good. But the other thing that had to be done behind all this was that I had to hire 4 voice actors. I've never hired a voice actor in my life. I didn't even know where it started. I told you that I sent a tweet out looking for voice actors, and I think I ended up listening to a few, and I ended up hiring one who voiced, is the guy, his name's Eddie, who had the voice of Melvin and Minkus. I really liked it. I liked he had a reel that he had did a bunch of different characters. The reason I picked him is he had a bunch of different characters in his reel, so I didn't have to say, oh, I wonder if he could do a voice like this. He had the voices that I was kind of looking for, and so that worked. So that was one of 4 people that I hired. And the biggest one was finding someone to play the Wax Maiden, because the Wax Maiden had such a distinct voice, a unique voice that had to be really close to be replicated to kind of sell it. And there's someone who I'd met just as an acquaintance in the industry. I don't know how I'd met her. I'd met her through a friend of a friend, and then had a chance to speak with her a couple a couple PAXs ago. But anyways, we just became acquaintances or friends, and I'm like, man, Maggie would be perfect for this. I think she would do a great job. I don't even know if she's done voice acting or not, but let me reach out to her and see what she says. So I reached out to her, and I'm like, if she said no, like I wouldn't have had to scramble, but I don't know what my plan B would have been. I'm just like, I just really felt like she could do it. I don't know why. I don't know. I just felt like she could do it. And so anyway, so she's like, yeah, I think she had done a little bit of VO work before. She's like, yeah, I'd love to do it, do it free of charge. I'm like, no. Like, and this is kind of where my take was at. I'm like, no, of course I'm going to pay you. And this is like before I heard anything that she had sent over to me. I'm like, I'm just kind of trusting that she could do it. But in my head, I'm like, hey, look, like, I just trust her to do it. So she did it. And when I heard it, I started laughing. Like, she sent me all the lines and I'm listening to it. I just started laughing because I thought she would do well. But in my opinion, I thought she killed it. Like, just completely nailed it. And it's such a unique voice too. But she did a great job. And I think, a lot of people enjoyed that. It was really cool to put this whole thing together and just feel good about it on so many different fronts. One, the community liked it, because it was solely for them, right? Like, you could watch this lore video, even if you're a fan of Dark Souls, and it's not going to make a whole lot of sense to you. It's like strictly only for, people that have been around, or people that have at least watched some or part of one of the playthroughs. And there was no like hidden anything behind it. It was just like, hey, this is something for fun and let's do it. So that felt really good too. But I want to stick to the rest of the production schedule, and then we'll kind of talk about how things wrapped up. So after that, so I hired the 4 VOs. I had to send them individualized scripts, right? So they don't care necessarily what the other people's lines are. I'm just like, hey, here's your isolated lines. So you got to chop the script up and send that over. So we did that. After, actually, one of the steps I missed is I had to reformat the script for the animator, because it was just like chicken scratch. It was just like, it was a bunch of lines in sequential order in Excel, and essentially a Google Docs or an Excel document. She's like, hey, could you put this in like script format? It would really help a lot. And I get it, because she storyboarded it, she timed it all out. In hindsight, I'm like, yeah, no problem. So that's Tyler came up pretty big there. Tyler's the audio producer. He really helped me put that together, saved me a ton of time. But just something that I don't know if you had experience in it, but just like I said, you have talented people, you put them in position and get out of their way. And, Tyler did a great job with that, to help on the production end of that. And then, so from there, one of the issues that came up is that I knew I wanted to do the animation, but prior to that, I wanted to have Miyazaki introduce it and have kind of like my vision was have like a Dharma Initiative Lost style intro. Like, you're kind of watching a video, you don't really know what's going on. There's some weird stuff going on before the animation, but it was essentially like Miyazaki saying that, this is the real lore behind Dark Souls. And so, a ball was dropped on that end, and, I had it in the production pipeline and it didn't get done. And ultimately it's on my end. I take the the blame for that, because when something doesn't get done, if it's someone on my team, then it's like, okay, well, hey, this person was overloaded, or I didn't communicate it clearly or anything. So anyway, so long story short, it was the night before and it wasn't done. I'm like, I did not plan on doing it myself, but you know what? The show goes on. You got to find a way. So I think it was like, it was completely not planned. I didn't have time blocked out to do it, but this is Thursday night. It's supposed to go live on Friday. I'm like, you know what? Whatever it takes, man, just do it. So end up actually, probably took me like 3 to 4 hours to put together the Miyazaki, which is a lot of editing, and I had a lot of fun with it. And I think I'm glad it worked out that way, because I knew I could make it exactly how I wanted it. And I worked a lot of things into the intro part of the animation, where there's a lot going on, and it's not just all random stuff. There's like Easter eggs, maybe some foreshadowing, but I put a lot of layers into it. So that people who are really interested into, like, because that's kind of how I am. Sometimes when I watch a film, like I'm like, okay, hey, look, are they foreshadowing? What are they showing here? This doesn't seem just like as it is. So I worked a lot of that into it and had a lot of fun doing it. So I felt like in a way, it was definitely better that I did it, because it was more of my vision, as opposed to kind of settling for something that maybe would have been not exactly what I was looking for. So it allowed me to get creative and weave things in, and I think I was really happy with how it turned out. So after that, I also put together the end credits, which I had to learn how to do, which is not a huge deal, but you go to YouTube and like Adobe Premiere Pro, there's like a special function to do credits, but learn that, put that together. So now it's about 2:30 in the morning on Friday, and this thing's supposed to air like Friday afternoon. And then so I put the end credits together. I get the final animation from Xandra at like 2:30, compile it all together, watch it, and there's some small changes I wanted to make, but I'm like, you know what, it's fine. It's like, it's time to go, because I also knew that I wanted to get some sleep on Thursday, because what good is having this this production piece, this lore video, if you don't have the energy and to put on a good show, even to get to the opportunity to play that. So I got to bed at like 3:30, compiled the video, rendered it, good to go, was happy with it. And so at 3:30 wrapped, it was done, ready to go. The next morning I go to OBS, set it up for the next show, because I'm like, how am I going to weave this thing in? Initially I thought I was going to download the Demon Souls video and then transition it perfectly into it, edit it all together. I decided not to do that, because I didn't know how the ending of Demon Souls was going to play out. So it's kind of like this little bit of uncertainty on my end in terms of, okay, hey, look, we have this piece, it's ready to go, but when do I play it? Do I play it before the credits? Do I play it, wait for the credits to play through? What do I do? And I didn't know, until the moment hit. So before we get to that part, it was funny, because Tarkov came out the new wipe, so there's brand new content there. People are hyped for Tarkov, but also, like, I still had to beat Demon Souls, and I'm like, oh man, we have 2 bosses left. I'm gonna breeze through this, and all of a sudden, like an hour and a half into it, I'm like, man, we hit a major difficulty spike. I'm starting to get concerned about, hey, like, can I beat this within the normal show time to even debut the video that we made? Because there's just so many moving pieces, right? You have the video done, but you can't play the video until you beat the game after the Demon Souls video is the ending is actually played, like the in-game ending. And so that was kind of like fun and a little bit uneasiness, but it kind of made me dial a little bit more in and have some fun with it. But anyways, so then it got to the moment when it's about to drop, right? So we get a chance to watch all the videos. You have to make a semi-important decision at the end of Demon Souls. Once I knew what the choice was, it was a no-brainer, because the lore video was written in a way that, you don't make a permanent decision. So I decided, so we beat the game and the credits start to roll, and I see a couple people in the chat say, oh man, I love the credits music and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, look, if I'm not necessarily going to sit through, if I'm watching someone beat a game, I'm not going to necessarily sit through and watch the end game credits. So let me play this thing now. So I just jumped right into it. Like, once the credits start, I'm like, I did some kind of interlude or something, and then just played it. Didn't preface anything, just played it and let it run. And I would say that it's been a very long time, if at all, where I felt like, I'm trying to think the word, uncomfortable, like on my own show, right? It's uncomfortable in the fact that, I don't have I have no other metaphor than this, but like you have this art project or this art, and it's like it's your baby, and you're like, okay, man, like it's a little bit out there. It's like a lot of me, meaning like it's all of my crazy ideas, and I don't know if people are gonna like it. And there was a budget on this thing. The budget was well exceeded. So there's money invested into this thing strictly for the enjoyment of the community. Like that was it. That was the whole point. Was like I just want people to enjoy it. That's all. There was no other expectations or anything. And so here I am. It's like the moment of truth where, all right, you've put in, so many, I don't know, I couldn't even tell you how many hours of work into this, put so much money into it. The stars have aligned. You stalled some of the game. You beat the game when you needed to, how you beat it to. It's a transition time. And so there's like some uneasiness. And I knew right away when I played the video that I was not going to have my face on it, just because I was like uncomfortable. It's like you're, have a part of you exposed, and, I don't know. I've never really felt that way before, especially on the Twitch show. But I'll tell you what, to me, it's important for me to always continue to do that stuff, because that's what, like, it keeps things exciting. It fires people up. And so the other thing too, is I really just, the only thing I wanted to do during that time was playing is just see what the reaction was. A lot of the times when you're live streaming, it's like you're doing something and you're glancing a little bit, but you can't really read it real time. So there were just so many twists and turns in the lore video that I'm like, man, I just want to enjoy the reaction that people have. And also, let's see what the actual reaction is. So it was really cool when it happened. Like it took a minute for people to understand what the heck was going on, because it's a really bizarre opening. But then I think once it settled in, it was just, a complete flood in the chat. And I'm like, it felt really good, because I don't know if people fully understood it, but it felt good because, like, I think that everyone at least got the fact that it was for them, that it was created with them in mind, and the future, and having a good time with what we do on the show. And also for me, like, I'd never seen anyone do anything like that. I don't even know where I got the idea from, but it doesn't matter. To me, the only thing that mattered was the execution. And I just thought, it's such a thing where you don't know how it's going to go, because it's not like a regular thing. Like, you don't tune into someone beating a game and all of a sudden there's this, custom, essentially cartoon or lore video that plays at the end of it. It just doesn't happen. And so it was definitely a definite risk, but it was 100% worth it. For me, it just opens up so many things. And I think the coolest thing for me is just seeing that people really enjoyed it. And, like, hey, can we watch it on YouTube? Is it up yet? And so when I was talking about it after the fact, like, I was going through the process. I'm like, oh man, it's not up on YouTube. Let me upload it while I'm talking, so that I can link it to people so they can watch it again. So it was really good. The chat exploded, got great feedback. At the end of the video, it says, hey, do you want to see more of this, or do you want this to continue? And it was like a complete unification that people want to see more, which for me, is good. Like, it puts some pressure on, I gotta, I would definitely do it in a little bit different way, with a larger time frame, and take more time writing the script. But it's good because it forces me, and I think that's part of the reason why how I is completely out of left field, how I am with money is so important, because, like, I invested, money from the show into that video. Like, I didn't like spend it and buy, I don't know, whatever people buy with money. I'm like, man, I just want to put this back into the show, into the community, into the production. And it was cool too. It was really cool to be able to hire talented people and showcase their talents. You know, everyone from, you know, Xandra, who did the animation from Michigan. I was fired up, and I'm like, hey, look, if this goes well, like, I'd love to just keep you on, and, you know, we keep getting better and better with these, to, you know, hiring the VOs and working with Maggie and Eddie, and it was just really cool and outside of the comfort zone. You know, I don't think I know for a fact I'm not gonna pivot and make a career out of doing those, but it's something fun and creative and exciting and different. And I don't know, I think it was cool. And I think for me, the thing I felt was like that people enjoyed it. I will say the only thing that surprised me, and this is not a huge deal. And I think for me, it comes from having no expectations, right? Like, I was a little surprised at, let's say surprised. I don't know the right word. It's just that, like, none of my peer members or friends like mentioned anything about it. I'm like, oh, that's, you know, I don't know. I think I'm just different in that regard, where I'm like overly excited when people do different things, but I know it's different for everyone, so I don't like hold anything. I was just a little surprised because it was like super out there, but the most important thing to me was the community reaction, and you know, that they liked it. And even if, and honestly, if people didn't like it, I could at least said, hey, look, I had this idea, I executed on it, it's what I thought people would like. I learned a lot, and regardless if people liked it or not, I learned so much doing it. You know, but to me, I wouldn't do it again without the community backing. I just wouldn't do it, because it's a lot of work. And so to do all that work and put all the money into something like that, to not have it just check the one box you need is that people like it, there would be no point to doing it, right? So it was something that I thought would be cool, that people would enjoy, and I'm glad it worked out that way. So that was been like a lot of my external focus. Like, anything, like if I would have had normal time to do like more first look at videos or different YouTube videos, all my like extra minutes and seconds and 10 minutes here, 30 minutes there, I squeezed into that project. So it's good. So, you know, without talking a ton more about the future of it, I could see doing those in the future for like the major games that we play, and, you know, as long as people continue to join them. So that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. This is like the production behind the scenes video of everything that went into it. If you have any questions, you know, feel free to tweet me. There's a lot. I think there's a lot left to be said, but it was a fun experience, and I'm glad we did it. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode. If you guys enjoyed it, leaving a rating on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you leave ratings, it helps out the show tremendously. If you really enjoyed it, you know, I think at some point, I just hope that, and it's cool because I get a lot of messages now, but if it moves the needle for you to like try, like you're like, oh, hey, Dan put this thing together. He no experience in it whatsoever. You know, it turned out like halfway good. You know, sometimes I think that's all you need to hear is that, you know, a spark from someone who has no idea what they're doing, and it works out to maybe push you to kind of do something similar, whatever, you know, and whether in your work realm or whatever. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next week.